sa panahon natin. We will see. Hindi matapos-tapos ang trending.
Maging maingat sa pagpo-post sa gamit natin na social media. Huwag sana tayong magkalimot, kaanib tayo sa iglesia.
INC, we are members of the INC. We're promoting Christian culture, good values with loyalty, with integrity. Yes, we are INC. Yes, we are INC. We're promoting Christian culture, good values, faith, and loyalty, cause we are INC. Let's share our faith sa mga kapwa-tao natin, magmisyon at magaghay all the time.
We should influence the world to obey and follow all God's words and intensify the renewal of life.
Maging maingat sa pagpo-post sa gamit natin na social media. Huwag sana tayong magkalimot, kaanib tayo sa iglesia.
Moderno na ang panahon ngayon, laganap na ang teknolohiya. Sari-sari ang mga click ngayon na tinatangkilik kahit mali na sa aral ng Diyos.
Pero brothers and sisters, always remember that we are in the Church of Christ. Maging maingat sa pagpo-post kasi we're Christians living online.
Sa paligid natin maging aware at sa kaligtasan ay mag-prepare. Ating i-promote ang Christian culture, mga official websites i-like and share.
Hashtag promoting Christian culture, tayo mga INC. Always promoting Christian culture, tayo mga INC.
INC, we are members of the INC.
We're promoting Christian culture, good values, faith, and loyalty, with integrity. Yes, we are INC. Yes, we are INC.
We're promoting Christian culture, good values, faith, and loyalty, cause we are INC. INC,
We are members of the INC.
Yes, we are promoting.
we're promoting Christian culture, good values, faith, and loyalty, with integrity.
Hashtag promoting Christian culture.
Yes, we are INC.
Always promoting Christian culture.
Yes, we are INC. We're promoting Christian culture, good values, faith, and loyalty, cause we are INC. Yes, we are INC. Yes, we are INC. Yes, we are INC. Yes, we are INC.
As of today, there is still no known cure for Parkinson's disease, an age-related degenerative brain condition that worsens over time. But in this week's episode of UJ Radio, we're going to talk with Brother Arto Heiskanen from Sweden, whose life's work is focused on finding a cure for Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative diseases. So let's go ahead and find out what he's learned from his many years in the field of research. Welcome to another episode of Unity Junction Radio, and tonight we're going to be talking about our minds and our brains, especially as we get older in age. We might be facing obstacles because we're just getting older in age. And tonight we're lucky to have a brother with us who's going to be able to help us better understand how the human brain works and some of the obstacles we might be facing as we get older. He is a professor and senior researcher, Technical University of Denmark. He's also a group worship service overseer and head deacon from the local congregation of Lund, Sweden, from the district of Northern Europe. Brother Arto Heiskanen is joining us today. Hopefully, I still got your name correct, Brother Arto. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Heiskanen hails from what country or part of the world?
Originally from Finland.
Of course, you also spent some time here in the Philippines as well, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And now you're in Sweden. How's the weather difference between the two?
it's a bit warmer here in southern Sweden compared to Finland. So it's already closer to Central Europe here.
I would imagine it's still warmer here in the Philippines too, right?
It's definitely more pleasant there from my point of view.
Really? All right.
Yes.
I want to talk about the young brother Art, where you went to school.
When I was living in Finland, if taking the college years, I studied there at a university called Åbo Academy, and that was biochemistry what I studied. And then I ended up in working also for around 10 years in a company before I then ended up in the Philippines and became also a member of the Church of Christ at that time, and then was able to also start to study at the University of the Philippines, Diliman campus.
Oh, you're very close to us. But why biochemistry of all things to study in college? What in your life pulled you in that direction that said, okay, you know what? Young brother Art says, I want to study biochemistry.
It partly, at least I would say, because I was interested in sciences, I was interested in math. And already at early age, when I was around 14, I was entering high school, I had some older friends, or rather friends of my father, who had studied biochemistry, and kind of I was interested in exactly already at that time if research of the brain would be more kind of possible by knowing biochemistry and not just chemistry or some pure engineering areas.
That was the reason how you got pulled into biochemistry. What are the kinds of jobs that biochemists do? If you could just walk me through some of the jobs that you've had.
Well, the area itself is not restricted to anything specific. One can end up, and many of those with whom I studied once upon a time, they ended up, for instance, in big either pharmaceutical companies or food industry. You may perform analysis of food and quality control and product development, or you may be working at a pharmaceutical company in different positions, and depending on the level and depth of your education, you may then be more and more into research. But there are diverse possibilities. And then, of course, some stay in academia.
And you stayed in academia.
Well, after a 10-year detour, I came back, and since then I have stayed. So I would say that most part of my life I have been in academia.
Would you mind my asking what you said? You mentioned a 10-year detour.
Yeah,
where did you go?
I was working actually in many things. It was supposed to be a temporary thing during my studies, but I ended up in working in a computer company which imported computer components and everything, and we assembled them. So I was able to learn also development of an assembly line for computers.
And then what exactly pulled you back towards, I guess if I could call it, your true calling of biochemistry?
I have many times been thinking of it, but I would say that everything was connected to God calling me into the Church of Christ, and then everything started to fall in place also in my private life and also when it comes to studies.
Okay, we'll get to that a little bit more later in the conversation, but your research work right now revolves around neurodegenerative diseases. Now, that's a big word. It's taken me many times to practice in preparation for the show because I could not say neurodegenerative straight for a while. But when we're talking about neurodegenerative, how I understand it is when I hear the word neuro, that has to do with the neurons in our brain, and degenerative meaning it's breaking down.
That's quite correct. It's exactly what happens in a way or another. This precisely the phenomenon.
So the diseases that cause our brain to break down, and off the top of my head, the ones that I'm familiar with are Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Earlier, you mentioned number one on that list is Alzheimer's.
That's correct, yes.
And then after that is people suffering from Parkinson's disease.
That's correct, yes.
And Parkinson's disease is more of your, can I call it your expertise, your focus?
That is the main focus of our research, exactly.
I'm just curious, why did you decide to focus on Parkinson's disease?
I would say that it isn't somehow that Parkinson's disease was of interest. It is in many regards a coincidence that collaborators in multidisciplinary research were exactly experts in Parkinson's disease on the medical side. So we ended up, and then the other is that the areas which in engineering or chemistry, biochemistry I have studied, they could easily be applied in the specific niche of Parkinson's disease. So it has kind of just been coincidentally building up, and now I'm 20 years in that research area.
All right. So what should we watch out for in our older relatives who are in their 50s and the 60s? Like, what are the first early signs of Parkinson's that we should be watching out for that should make our brains and our neurons go like, wait a minute, something's wrong here?
One of the major initial symptoms when it comes to the motor functions of the body is that hands, for instance, start to shake. There is this kind of continuous trembling of hands. Although it doesn't automatically mean that one has Parkinson's disease, there may be other reasons. Alzheimer's may also give that kind of symptoms, so it has to be studied and diagnosed by a doctor who is an expert in that area. Then, of course, the next level would be that one have difficulties in moving legs, meaning the movement doesn't start and one is kind of like falling. The posture is becoming kind of more bent down, and then when it goes longer and longer, swallowing, food, breathing, everything becomes difficult.
Okay, so let's say I have a grandma, a lola or lolo, who I'm also observing to have those kinds of symptoms with Parkinson's. So we go to the hospital. What do? They're not going to be listening to my heart, right? They're going to be taking a specific scan of my brain. Would that be correct?
That would be one of the things, and there would be assessment of the motor functions in different ways to be able to see. And that is, of course, one of the problems, that the brain itself cannot be studied to diagnose that disease. And that is also why the research is not going very fast forward since the disease was discovered by Parkinson.
When was that?
He was a medical doctor, and he had observed his patients and seen some typical symptoms, and he described that in an essay, a famous essay, 1817. So it's known, but still we are feeling that we are like in the beginning of really understanding what causes it.
That's always something that's amazed me about the names of these diseases. Like, we can find a disease specific in the realm of Parkinson's, but not Parkinson's, and you're the one that discovered it. So it's become Heiskanen disease.
Yeah,
is that a usual practice in the scientific community? I mean, like if I discover a disease, it becomes the no fuente condition.
It is very, very usual generally in natural sciences. Many things that have been discovered, the one discovering is then kind of giving the name. But usually it is not the person, him or herself. It is someone afterwards who makes that connection.
So maybe take me through one of the usual days, or maybe a super unusual day in your line of work. How do you work with the data that you get with your battle against Parkinson's disease?
Well, in our case, it differs from someone, let's say, who is directly studying the brain of a human being or an animal, because we develop devices in biomedical engineering that are then used in medical research to, for instance, understand how Parkinson's disease may be initiated, how it progresses, how it influences the brain. And we are also studying aiding technologies for therapy to find cure. So our data is entirely different from what a medical doctor, for instance, working with neurology would be developing. So we use so many different techniques, and we, from our results, then try to understand how, for instance, cells function, which could be used in a therapeutic intervention or how we can build up some simple devices that mimic the functions of different brain regions.
Okay, so we mentioned earlier it was in 1817 that Dr. Parkinson discovered this condition.
Yes.
So it's been about 208 years.
Yes.
Educated guess, as much as possible, in all the years that you spent studying this disease, how far or how close are we to some kind of cure to Parkinson's disease?
There are two reasons which cause a delay. One is, of course, that we still need to increase our knowledge and understanding of, for instance, the therapeutic interventions that could be considered as a cure, meaning implantation of cells and tissue that would be able to take the place of the degenerated neurons. But the other side also which causes delay is that legislative measures in different countries still prohibit that kind of interventions. Very good reason for that, because such cells might become actually cancer cells. So the authorities want to be absolutely sure that there is no other harm. And there are research projects which are granted, for instance, here in Lund, where I live, although I work in Denmark. There is a big clinical trial together with UK, which is exactly about implantation of specialized cells, which we are also studying and characterizing, and in order to cure really the patients. And it looks so far quite promising, but of course it's still far from being a real cure. I would say that 10 years is minimum that anything practical would be coming out.
I've been calling you Brother Art throughout most of this conversation, but you're also Dr. Heiskanen, because you spent many years studying this and you have your PhD. Some of the things that you've gone through, from your BS to your master's to your PhD, and all those years of your work and your research and your study, what are some of the things that just fascinate you about the human brain?
One thing which I have to say daily amazes me is that the human brain functions. And that is what exactly brings to my mind already before I was a member of the church, that there has to be God who is controlling everything, because the brain is so complex. I really realize that the more you know, the more you become humble in understanding how little you know.
Right.
And I have in practical terms seen that in many cases when someone is studying and rising up in a career thinking how much he or she knows, but then the more you progress, you realize actually how little you know.
That's amazing. I mean, you spent so many years getting your PhD, and that's when you realize, man, I don't really know that much.
That is exactly true realization.
Is there a way you could tell our audience, maybe an analogy, how complex the human brain actually is?
What I can give as an analogy, all computer networks around the world do not probably match with one human brain in terms of the connections and complexity. The number of neurons, 100 billion or so, all have their connections which then control the functions. In all regards, it's really, really amazing that it can even function every moment in our lives.
What I'm understanding, what I'm hearing you say is it's 2025. We all have the internet. Everybody is connected to everybody through undersea cables, through satellites, through landlines in the ground. And yet all of those connections, putting all 7 billion people on Earth together, still does not compare to the number of connections that are firing off in our brain right now.
That is quite correct. It's indeed, and it's not surprising on the other hand that research on internet and connections and all that is also inspired and is mimicking the brain in terms of connectivity, but it's still very, very crude model of the real functions of the brain.
Well, one thing I want to ask you right now, because you spent so many years studying and working, would you have advice for those who want to be biochemists or PhD holders one day? Advice to those who are still studying and pursuing higher education?
Well, yes, I fully encourage everyone to do that. It is very important, and of course it's important that one finds the area that is motivating and interesting. But one important thing to keep in mind, though, is that it is more important or most important to seek knowledge from God and God's knowledge. That is what really is the fundament for all of us. That is the focus of my life, despite my studies or work in research now. My life in the church and the services and divine duties, that is my focus daily. Although even now I spend quite a bit but just traveling between work and home, and when I get home we have many meetings, we have many devotional prayers and evangelical activities online, so it's the whole day essentially in a way or another related also to church and divine duties. I want to especially tell everyone, especially young people who are still studying and planning for a career, work hard and spend time in planning how you conduct your life and what kind of career you want to have. But remember, God should be a part of that equation. And one should not only focus and plan a career without planning one's duties in the church. For me, that has been the greatest strength to go on also in my professional life.
Brother Art, thank you so much for sharing your life story today, from everything to the brain to your spirit, and just showing us that we can just keep moving and pushing forward, and we'll find what we're looking for. Again, so thank you so much for spending your time here today. And with that, our friends and family, hopefully you learned a thing or two here. And with that, we're going to go ahead and listen to what the Bible says.
But more than anything else, put God's work first and do what He wants. Then the other things will be yours as well.
And we're back. And I want to thank Brother Art, Dr. Heiskanen as well, for joining us today and talking to us about the human brain and what to look out for when it comes particularly to Parkinson's disease, which is his area of expertise. So Brother Art, if you have few words or many words, up to you, to greet those who are important in your life.
Well, I want to, of course, greet my family. I am at home right now, but not the whole family is here. And I want to especially greet my son, who is in the school for ministers in the Philippines right now. And of course, I want to greet all the members around the world and those in the Philippines and here in Europe, especially in the district of Northern Europe.
Maraming salamat, Brother Art. And for all of our viewers online and INC TV, thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed and you were inspired by this episode, please do give us a like and heart on this post wherever you're watching us on INCPC's socials, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at weare.incpc, and share this link as well. You can catch UJ Radio as well every Saturday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine Standard Time on INC Radio 954 kilohertz, and of course on their YouTube channel. And with that, we'd like to acknowledge our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, and our Deputy Executive Minister, Brother Angelo Iranio V. Manalo. And that wraps up tonight's episode of Unity Junction Radio. I'm going to see you at the next one. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week. Brother Art, bye.
In your life when you stumble in the dark, when you're struggling to make it through the night, so you close your eyes and pray, and to God say, I am here, please draw near, show me the way. And you look up to a glimmering night sky, and you smile at the light of the stars. What you feel in the air, what's been there all around you, God's love. You're still blessed by God. And so forth you walk with a spring in your step as you wait for the dawning of day. You feel no shadows that lurk in the dusk, for God's love will light the way. And you look up to a glimmering night sky, and you smile at the light of the stars. What you feel in the air, what's been there all around you, God's love. You're still blessed by God. Hear God's word ever close, close to your heart. Don't let go. Hold on, fight the good fight. No matter the darkness that covers, we have God's eye. You look up to a glimmering night sky. You smile at the light of the stars. You will feel it in the air, everywhere, all around you, God's love. You're still blessed by God. You smile at the light of the stars. You will feel it in the air, everywhere, all around you, God's love. You're still blessed by God.
Here we have conversations that inform, educate, and inspire people. That's UJ Radio.